Hey, welcome back to the channel. Today we're looking at a fascinating history on Remington knives. For the past 104 years, 105 years, um, just a wonderful knife maker. We're going to go over the early history, we're going to go over the middle history, we're going to go over the late history, just pretty much history. So if you're not a history buff, maybe you don't want to look at this. On the other hand, if you want to see some cool knives, maybe you should look at it. Hey, welcome back to the Fortified Castle. Hi, all my viewers. So, Barnabas always decides to come up. You can hear him thumping around here, my cat. And he waits till I start the video. Then he jumps on the table because he just likes to aggravate you. And he succeeds in that. So as I mentioned in the prelogue, we are going to be looking at the history of Remington knives. What a great company to collect, and great knives all across the board throughout the 104-year history. This is a channel that you come to learn the things you don't know, because I know what you don't know, but what we don't know is what we don't know. And so we're going to look at that and try to figure out what we don't know. All right, before I get into this, just you see these things on the table. So I'm making some knife lanyards. Pretty cool, a lot of fun to do, very easy to do. This is one with just a socket on it. I have some different ideas. A socket's a great idea. It just really helps put some weight to that if you like to have a little bit of weight. And they're inexpensive, and that's part of the problem when you start making these lanyard beads is metal's expensive and you can get into it. So this is a socket I cut off right there and kind of made like a skull and like a Punisher skull, and put some red eyes in there. Oh, scary. But yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with this. This is called a cobra knot, and that's because I haven't done any of this. As you make the knot, it rears up like a cobra does. That's my snake sound. And so, I got a bunch of this stuff. I'm going to make a bunch of these so that when I send people stuff, I can put some of these in there. I like them a lot. They look really good. And I like a little lanyard to help pull a knife out. So let's get right into it without further ado. All right, so we're going to start on the early history of Remington. As many of you may be aware, Remington Arms is an arms manufacturer, firearm manufacturer. The reason I'm going to go back that far is part of their history has to do with their tang stamp, and so I want you to understand that. So in 1816, Eliphalet, I'll put the spelling up there, Remington founded the company in New York, mainly because he wanted to build a better gun. And so he built his first gun was a flintlock. He took a second place in the marksmanship competition at age 23, and almost everybody in that competition wanted him to make them one of his firearms, and that's how he got into gunsmithing. So up in the picture right there is a Remington new model army. They made those between 1863 and 1875. Made a lot of different knives, but Eliphalet passed away in 1861. His sons take over the business, and in 1888 they sell to Marcellus Hartley and Partners. Now that is the Hartley and Graham Sporting Goods of New York City. So Marcellus had a sporting goods shop, buying a firearms manufacturer was a good fit. That's not the only business they bought. They had a bunch of different businesses. One of the businesses they owned was the Union Metallic Cartridge Company out of Bridgeport, Connecticut. And as the name implies, these folks made ammunition. All right, so remember that Union Metallic Cartridge Company. So in 1919, Remington had made firearms for World War One, and of course the war ended, and they had a lot of excess capacity and a lot of inventory, and so they wanted to put that plant to use, and they thought, why don't we make knives? They did make bayonets during World War One, and so they converted that Bridgeport factory to a knife factory. So in February 1920, they saw their first pocket knife, and that's a tang stamp up there. It's the earliest pocket knives that you'll see. It's a UMC, Remington UMC straight line with nothing else on it. And you see, that's the wrong one right there. That's a 1924. Let me see. I think this one is it right here. Yes! Come on, snap in. Okay, that's it right there. You can barely see it. Remington UMC. That tan stamp ran from 1920 to 1924. And then, anyhow, Remington, because they were a firearms dealer, had a large network of dealerships. That really helped Remington. It also helped that they made a fantastic knife. And so these knives are, I don't know, I think maybe the early ones are better than cases, actually. That's the kind of feeling I get. Just fantastic knives. This is a nice little jackknife right here. A large jackknife. Just beautiful. Look at that. See this tang stamp R623. And let me show you this tang stamp again. I showed you in the beginning. There goes my nail. Blew out a nail. Come on. So this one you could see the Remington UMC. The UMC stands for Union Metallic Cartridge. And so Union Metallic Cartridge was the parent company. Remember, Hartley owned Remington and UMC. UMC was a bigger company, but they would later drop that UMC in favor of just Remington. They shortened the name to Remington Arms. But you can see the USA on the side right there. And over here, Made in America. Can you see it? Come on, step in. Let's do this. Boom. There you go. You see the Made in America on the side there. So yeah, that's what that tang stamp looks like. These are highly collectible knives. And that second tang stamp I just showed you runs from 1924 to 1933. So because of that large dealership, they had a ready market for their knives throughout the country, and they grew super quick. In 1922, they brought out their bullet line. That was a line of knives like this that had a bullet shield. They were trappers. That's what they called this, is just a trapper. They ended up making, I don't know, 20, 30 models along this bullet line. But they were really popular, rugged, heavy-duty knives, but they were also expensive. And so they really didn't sell that many overall. By 1923, they were producing, they produced the R333, which is their Boy Scout knife. So that was the first year that they produced that. And these are just like every other knife, fantastic. Initially, they had the old style can opener, but in 1933, they changed it to a two-part can opener. You can actually see the pin right there. And so this is a, you can kind of see it there. And they said the two-part is stronger. So a lot of these can openers broke on this bottom part right here. And so that was their idea to fix that. Look at that knife. Oh my gosh. Man, that is beautiful. Beautiful knife. So by 1925, they're producing over 1,000 patterns of knives. And they added fixed blades to that inventory in 1925. They were making 10,000 knives a day. At their peak in 1933, they were making over 3 million knives a year. And 1929, you had the Great Depression. And so that doesn't really affect the company that much, Remington, the knife production. But what it did affect is their dealers. A lot of the dealers, because of the reduced, sales from the Great Depression, folded, and so that hurt their sales and put the company under a lot of pressure. So in 1933, they sold to EI DuPont. So DuPont didn't buy the company outright. They obtained a majority share in the company. So right there are the two tang stamps that pop out of the 1930s. The first set ran from 1933 to 1935, and that's the tang stamp on this knife right here. This is a really rare knife. I just picked this up. I haven't even cleaned this knife up, by the way. It's a medium-sized dog leg. So it's hard to find a dog leg pre 1940, but this dog leg has 3 blades. It's a dog leg Stockman. Look at that. And that's just remarkable. But here's that tang stamp. Let's look at it real quick here. Boom. So you have a straight line Remington, no UMC. You say they dropped the UMC. There's USA on this side of the knife. And then over here you have made in the USA. And like most knives of that era, every blade is marked. And you'll see that the blades are marked with different stamping. So that's your straight line Remington, no UMC. And that's one of the tang stamps that ran from 1933 to 1935. This is different. Notice the tang stamp is different. And so you're always looking at the main blade here to figure out your tang stamp. During this period of time, 1933 to 1935, DuPont's trying to make Remington profitable. So it's a time when they're cutting all of these patterns out, and roughly by a third. So they went from 1,000 different patterns down to about 300. So finally you get to that era of 1935 to 1940. Those are the tang stamps up there for that era, and this is a knife that represents that era. So around this time you get what is called a script Remington, and this is not it. So this is the second tang stamp, Remington USC right there. Actually, this is a 1935. Let me see if this one is. Maybe I got these confused. Yeah. So this is a Remington script. That's a 1933, 1935. I guess I don't have an example of that 35 to 40 tang stamp, but you can see them up there. So this, with the Remington script, although they're producing like 300 patterns, Remington is contracting out. So the Remington script knives are actually contract knives, and they're not the same quality as the straight line Remingtons are. So if you're collecting, that's basically, first you're looking for Remington UMC, and secondly you're looking for just a straight line Remington. The Remington script knives, still pretty good knives, but they're a little less expensive. And I'll close this segment out with saying, as we approach World War II, the Defense Department is contacting Remington saying we need you to produce a lot of stuff. So DuPont gets out of the knife business. They sell everything. They sell the knives, the patterns, the parts, the trademark, everything. They just get out of the business to Pal Cutlery Company. Okay, so officially, Remington is no longer making knives. Pal is making knives, and they're all the old Remington patterns. They were using the patterns, they were using machines, they were using the people, and so the only knives using that Remington stamp that I'm aware of, some TL29s had the Remington stamp on them. But Pal made the Mark 1, the Mark 2, and the Mark 3 knives, and you'll see those RH Pal RH-53 knives from World War II, but they're not really Remington. Another thing about the Pal knives is Pal is going to use all the parts that they bought from Remington. So you'll see knives that have Remington trademark on their tang, and also Pal. And whenever Pal did that, they always included a Pal trademark on the knife. And so all those knives will have both Pal and Remington. They only did that a couple of years. Probably by 1943, they weren't doing it anymore. And so you may see knives that have these dual markings. They're not really Frankenstein knives. They're just knives that Pal was using all the parts. So Pal goes out of business in 1953, and Remingtons are gone. Now, around the 70s or 80s, some German companies made some unauthorized Remingtons. So any of the Remingtons you see with Germany marks are not authorized versions. Those are just trademark infringed knives that came out of Germany. But in 1982, Remington decides to get back into the knife business. Rather than making them themselves, they contract with Camillus. And what the very first knives were the bullet knives from Camillus. The idea was to produce one knife a year for Remington enthusiasts. They didn't know how well it was going to go, but it was really popular. And their trapper model, this very famous model right here, the 11, this is 1128, but the first one that Camillus made was an 1123. Same model, just in bone, jigged bone. So it's a jig bone model, the 1123. And then they also made the 1173, which was the baby bullet, the smaller version of this trapper. So that kicks off the Camillus era. These are good quality knives. So this one's from 1988, and it's a really good reproduction of the original. The only difference is the original had 4 pins, and you can see there's only 3 pins on this knife. And so otherwise, it's the same size, same blade shapes, everything. These are great reproduction models. And this in and of itself is a good knife. So this would make a great, hunting, camping, skinning knife for you. Or, a knife to use out in the trades. And of course, some people did. So that's it right there. see the dates are marked on these. This is a 1989. I thought that was an 88. In between 86 and 96, they brought out this R series here. This is an R2, I think. Let's see. All of these have the original Remington marks on them. And you see in the back, R2. So these were hunting knives. I think there were 8 different models made, maybe 9. 9 different models were made. All of these are made by Camillus. And this is a bird hunting knife. But all of these were specialty knives to be used, like bird hunting or hunting one way or another. And the funny thing is Camillus was only supposed to make 1 per year, and they ended up just going crazy. They made a bunch of different models. Some of those models aren't original Remington models too, so you got to be careful for that if you're looking for an accurate reproduction of a Remington model. So in 2007, Camillus went bankrupt, and Remington contracted with Bear & Son to produce their knives. And so here is a Remington Bear & Son trapper right here. Really great looking stag on that. Look at that. And these are good knives. They don't really have the same walk and talk as the Camillus knives, but they're pretty good knives. I don't know whether they all are. This is a pretty good knife. You can see right there. Look at that bone, man. No gaps in this. I don't know what year this was produced in, but Bear & Son produced those knives up to 2018. During that time frame, Remington also produced some of their knives in China. This is a signature series knife right here. You can see right there, Sportsman series. Nice little Stockman. These are well-made knives. They're good knives. I don't have anything bad to say about this knife. And very attractive knives. During this time frame, from the 80s up to the 2020s, Remington was changing hands, and so they went bankrupt a couple times. The second time they ended up breaking the company up into two different companies own the various sections of Remington. One, the ammunition part, and the other one, the firearm part. This is another China knife right here. Good looking knife, good action, good knife, good to go. And so these are pretty nice knives. They're also making nowadays these really cheap knives, like $10, $12 and a 10. I don't really know what the quality on those knives are. You might just comment if you have one and let us all know. But 2018, Buck starts making the knives. Those are the green ones that you see. They're kind of a lime green, black. I don't have one. I'd like to get a hold of one, but it's just so many knives, so little time. So Buck, I don't really know why, only made those knives for a very short period of time. And then Remington went back to Bear & Son, who made a couple series in 21, 22. And then they contracted with GEC. So this is the GEC model right here. It's a baby bullet. And of course, it's a GEC. So they're good to go. You can see right there. And from what I can see, they kind of bounce back and forth. You can see this is a 2021 model right here. And then I think the 22 model is a Bear and Son, and then the 23 model is a GEC again. And last year's, I believe, was a Bear and Son. I might be wrong about that, though. I get kind of confused because they're kind of bouncing back and forth. So that's where Remington is today. They're just fantastic knives to collect. I don't care which one you get. They're all pretty good knives. I think there's a series called the Traditional series. They don't have really good reviews on those knives. That's a series, the inexpensive knives out of China. So the Signature series, though, those are good to go. Those are really good knives. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned a lot about them. And I hope you found out something that you didn't know before. Have a great day.